The ring felt heavier than it had any right to be. For 10 years, it had lived in the small, felt-lined box on my nightstand, a silent, silver accusation. Some nights, I'd take it out, its weight a familiar pressure in my palm. It was a simple thing, a wide silver band with a hammered finish, something its owner, Leo, had bought at a street fair our senior year of college. It became my secret, my penance, the tangible anchor for a decade of quiet, unrequited longing. My life had settled into a rhythm of gentle dissatisfaction. I had a decent job in graphic design, a clean apartment that was always too quiet, and a series of dates that fizzled out before they could ever ignite. I was an observer of my own existence, watching the days blur together from behind a pane of glass I'd constructed myself. The ring was the one thing that felt truly real, a connection to a time when I had felt something acutely, painfully, even if it was just the sting of unspoken feelings. But now, at 32, the weight was becoming unbearable. It wasn't just a ring anymore. It was a monument to my own inertia. I couldn't move forward while I was still clutching a piece of the past. I had to return it. It was the only way to finally close the door. Finding him wasn't hard. Leo was not a man built for hiding. A few searches online led me to an article in a local mountain town newspaper about a furniture maker and artisan carpenter who had set up shop in the woods. There was a picture of him, older, his jaw sharper, his hair a little shorter, but the smile was the same. It was that same infuriating, charming, lopsided grin that had always made my stomach do a slow, sick flip. He was standing in front of a half-finished cabin, sawdust in his hair, a tool belt slung low on his hips. The caption named the business, Starkwood Designs, and address was listed. It was a 3-hour drive. The following Saturday, I got in my car, the felt box a hard, square lump in my jacket pocket. The drive up into the mountains was a steady climb from concrete sprawl to dense forests of pine and fir. The air grew cooler, cleaner. I followed the GPS down a series of progressively smaller roads until it announced, "You have arrived," in front of a gravel turnoff with a simple, hand-carved wooden sign that read Starkwood. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. This was a stupid, melodramatic idea. I could have just mailed it. A decade late, sure, but less intense. But I was already here. I pulled in, the tires crunching on the gravel, and killed the engine. The silence that rushed in was absolute, broken only by the whisper of wind through the trees and the distant, rhythmic thud of a hammer. I saw the cabin from the article, nestled in a clearing. It was beautiful, all dark wood and sharp angles, with a wide porch and large windows that seemed to drink in the surrounding forest. And there he was. Leo stood near a stack of lumber, a hammer in his hand, his back to me. He wore a faded gray t-shirt that stretched tight across his shoulders and a pair of worn jeans dusted with sawdust. Even from a distance, I could see the focused line of his back, the efficient, powerful economy of his movements as he worked. He paused, setting the hammer down to wipe his brow with the back of his forearm, and that's when he turned. He saw my car, a foreign object in his secluded world. He squinted, his head tilting slightly. I knew the exact moment he recognized me. His body went still for a fraction of a second, a pause in the rhythm of his day, and then that familiar grin spread across his face. It was slower this time, less boyish, but it hit me with the same force it always had. I got out of the car, my legs feeling unsteady. The air smelled of pine needles and freshly cut wood, a clean, earthy scent that was all him. He started walking toward me, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Jules? Julian Wright? What in the hell are you doing all the way up here?" His voice was deeper than I remembered, a low, pleasant rumble that seemed to vibrate in the quiet air. It was the voice that used to narrate our late-night study sessions, the voice that had once drunkenly whispered a secret in my ear that I couldn't remember the next morning. "Leo," I said. My own voice sounded thin, reedy. I was in the area." It was the lamest lie I'd ever told. Leo stopped a few feet from me, his eyes, a warm hazel I remembered with perfect clarity, scanning my face. He looked good. More than good. The years had settled on him comfortably, carving new lines around his eyes and mouth, giving him a grounded, solid presence he hadn't had in college. He was less of a whirlwind and more of a mountain now. "In the area," he repeated, one eyebrow arching up. That damn eyebrow. It always meant he was calling bullshit. The area of what? Getting lost? Last I checked, the closest thing to civilization is a gas station with a broken coffee machine. My face grew hot. Okay, fine. I came to see you. His smile softened, losing its teasing edge. Yeah? Well, it's good to see you, man. It's been a long time. He took a step forward and, before I could brace myself, pulled me into a brief, one-armed hug. It was over in a second, but it was enough. Enough for me to feel the solid warmth of his body, the rough texture of his t-shirt, the scent of sawdust, and something else, something uniquely Leo, a clean, masculine smell like soap and sunshine. My entire nervous system lit up like a switchboard. He pulled back, his hand lingering on my shoulder for a moment too long. A meaningful touch. Or was it? My mind immediately started its frantic analysis. Was he just being friendly? Or was there something more in the pressure of his fingers, the way his gaze held mine? You want a tour of the palace? He asked, gesturing back toward the cabin. Or at least a glass of water. You look like you've seen a ghost. Both sound good. I managed, my hand instinctively going to my pocket, touching the hard edges of the box. Not yet. I couldn't do it yet. I needed to breathe first. He led me toward the cabin, and I fell into step beside him, hyper-aware of the scant inches between us. I spent the next hour in a state of protracted observation, my initial mission all but forgotten. I watched him as he showed me his home. The inside was as beautiful as the out, filled with furniture he'd obviously made himself. A massive oak dining table, a sleek, modern-looking sofa frame, a bookshelf that climbed all the way to the vaulted ceiling. It was all solid, functional, and beautiful without trying to be. I watched the way his hands moved as he talked, broad and capable, with clean, short nails and a constellation of tiny, faded scars on the knuckles. I watched the way the light from the window caught the gold flecks in his eyes. He moved around the small space with an easy grace, filling a glass of water for me, leaning against a counter as he asked about my life. I gave him the sanitized version, the design job, the city, the comfortable quiet. I left out the part where his ghost had been my constant companion. Sounds like you've got it all figured out, he said, but his tone was neutral, his expression unreadable. That was another thing I'd forgotten about him, his ability to be an open book one moment and a locked door the next. Hardly, I said with a short, humorless laugh. It's just a life. He just nodded, his eyes fixed on me. It was an unervingly steady gaze, and I felt like he was seeing right through the carefully constructed facade I was presenting. He was seeing the lonely man who drove 3 hours to return a 10-year-old ring. As he talked, he moved to put a kettle on the stove, and his knee brushed against mine where I was perched on a stool. The contact was fleeting, barely there, but it sent a jolt straight up my spine. My breath hitched. I'm sure he didn't even notice. It was a small kitchen. Accidental contact was inevitable. But my internal analyst, the frantic, overthinking part of my brain, logged it as significant. Exhibit A in the case of maybe he feels something too. It was a flimsy case, built on circumstantial evidence and wishful thinking. The sky outside had been darkening for the last hour, the bright afternoon giving way to a bruised, purple twilight. Just as Leo was pouring hot water over tea bags and 2 mugs, a low rumble of thunder echoed through the valley. Sounds like a storm's rolling in, he said, his voice casual. He glanced out the window. You're not planning on driving back down the mountain in this, are you? The road gets slick. My heart did a complicated little jump. Here it was. The excuse. The opportunity. I should probably get going before it gets too bad, I said, my voice betraying my reluctance. Leo turned, leaning back against the counter, one of the mugs cradled in his hands. The scent of chamomile and something spicy filled the air. Or, he said slowly, his eyes finding mine in the dimming light, you could stay. The couch is comfortable. We could actually catch up, instead of this 10-year highlight reel. Just us. My heart picked up its pace. This was a bad idea. A terrible, wonderful, dangerous idea. Being here, with him, was like standing too close to a fire. I'd spent a decade trying to cool the embers, and in a single afternoon, he'd coaxed them back into a roaring flame. I don't have anything, I said weakly. A toothbrush, change of clothes. I've got a spare toothbrush. And you can sleep in your clothes or borrow a shirt. It's not the Four Seasons, Jules. It's just my couch. He took a sip of his tea, his eyes never leaving my face. He was waiting, daring me. The first fat drops of rain began to splatter against the window pane. The decision was made for me. Okay, I said, the word barely a whisper. Okay, I'll stay. A slow smile spread across his face. It wasn't the cocky grin from before. This was something softer, quieter, something that looked suspiciously like satisfaction. The storm broke in full force shortly after that. Rain lashed against the roof, and the wind howled through the pines, a wild and lonely sound. A few minutes later, the lights flickered once, twice, and then died completely, plunging the cabin into a deep, velvety darkness. Well, Leo's voice came out of the blackness, laced with amusement. There goes the neighborhood. I heard him moving, the soft scuff of his boots on the wood floor. A moment later, a match scraped, and a tiny flame bloomed, casting his face in dramatic, dancing shadows. He lit a thick candle on the coffee table, then another on the mantelpiece. The room filled with a warm, flickering glow that felt infinitely more intimate than the harsh electric light had. Good thing I'm a Luddite at heart, he said, his smile a flash of white in the candlelight. Power goes out up here all the time. The shared experience of the sudden outage shifted the atmosphere between us. The pretense of a casual catch-up fell away, replaced by a sense of being two people huddled together against the wildness outside. We sat on the floor in front of the unlit hearth, the mugs of tea warming our hands. So, he said, breaking the comfortable silence. His voice was low, and it seemed to be absorbed by the shadows. The design job. Does it make you happy? It was a surprisingly direct, surprisingly deep question. Not, is the pay good, or is it interesting, but does it make you happy? I thought about the endless hours spent staring at a screen, tweaking fonts and color palettes for clients who didn't care about beauty, only about brand synergy. It's fine, I admitted. It's stable. It pays the bills. That's not what I asked. His gaze was steady, unwavering. In the flickering light, I couldn't hide the truth from my face. No, I said, the admission feeling heavy in the air. No, it doesn't make me happy. He nodded slowly, as if I had just confirmed something he already suspected. You were always the best artist in our group, you know. Your sketches were incredible. I always thought you'd end up in a gallery, not designing corporate logos. I was floored. He remembered. He remembered my stupid, private sketchbooks, the ones I rarely let anyone see. That was a long time ago. You can't make a living from charcoal drawings. Maybe not, he conceded. But you can make a life. He gestured around the candlelit room, at the handcrafted furniture, the dark woods, the sleeping forest outside the windows. I don't make a fortune, but I wake up every morning and I get to build things with my hands. I get to be here. It's enough. This was a side of him I'd never seen. The playful, confident boy I knew had been replaced by a thoughtful, introspective man. He had found his place in the world, while I was still drifting. The silence stretched between us again, but it was different now. It was filled with his confession, his quiet philosophy. It was a moment of softness, of unexpected vulnerability. Do you ever get lonely up here? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. It was a projection, of course. I was asking for myself. Leo looked down into his mug, swirling the last of his tea. He was quiet for so long I thought he wasn't going to answer. Sometimes, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. He looked up, and his eyes met mine across the flickering candle. But I was lonelier in a city full of people. Weren't you? And there it was. The tipping point. He saw me. He truly, completely saw me. He saw the loneliness I tried so hard to hide, the quiet desperation that had driven me up this mountain. The performance of being well-adjusted and fine was over. The flimsy scaffolding of polite conversation had collapsed, and we were left standing in the ruins, just two people in a dark room, speaking the truth. The ring in my pocket felt like it was burning a hole through the fabric. I couldn't sit here, accepting his vulnerability, his perception, without offering my own. The tension in the room was no longer just the unresolved history between us. It was a living thing, a palpable presence created by the things we were finally, almost saying. My hand was shaking as I reached into my pocket. My fingers closed around the small, hard box. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. This was it. Leo, I started, my voice hoarse. The real reason I came up here. He didn't say anything. He just watched me, his expression intense, waiting. The firelight carved sharp planes and deep shadows onto his face, making him look like a classical statue. "I came to give you something," I said, my voice cracking on the last word. I pulled the box from my pocket and held it out on my open palm. It looked small and insignificant in the vast, quiet space between us. His eyes dropped from my face to the box in my hand. He didn't move. The only sounds were the drumming of the rain and the frantic beat of my own blood in my ears. The subtext of the moment was suffocating. I wasn't just handing him a box. I was handing him 10 years of silence, 10 years of pining, 10 years of a life lived in waiting. "You, I stammered, needing to fill the loaded silence. "You left it in the bathroom at the old apartment. When we moved out." I opened the box, revealing the dull gleam of the silver band inside. "I've had it all this time. I should have mailed it. I'm sorry." My confession was tangled up in the apology. Sorry for keeping it. Sorry for not calling. Sorry for being a coward. Sorry for loving you in secret for a decade. It was all there, hanging in the air between us. Leo looked at the ring, then back up at my face. His expression was unreadable, a mask of stillness. For one horrifying, gut-wrenching moment, I thought he was going to laugh, or look confused, or worse, look pitying. I thought he was going to take the box, say a polite "thank you," and the moment would be over, leaving me utterly, completely exposed and humiliated. But he didn't. He didn't take the box. Instead, he moved slowly, deliberately. He reached out and gently took my hand, the one holding the box. His fingers were warm and slightly rough, calloused from his work. He enveloped my hand in his, and the simple contact was so overwhelming I felt my knees go weak. He turned my hand over, letting the box rest in his palm, but he didn't let go of my fingers. With his other hand, he reached into the box and lifted the ring. It glinted in the candlelight. He looked at it. Then he looked at me, his hazel eyes dark and serious. My breath was trapped in my chest. Time seemed to slow down, stretching into an eternity. "I am giving it back. This is the end of it." My mind repeats the phrase like a mantra, a desperate attempt to brace for the finality. But then he moves. He doesn't put the ring in his own pocket. He doesn't set it aside. Still holding my gaze, he brings the ring to my left hand, which is trembling in his grasp. My mind goes blank. What is he doing? This isn't part of the script I've been rehearsing in my head for 10 years. Slowly, with an impossible gentleness, he slides the silver band onto my ring finger. It fits perfectly. The cool metal settles against my skin, a place it has never been before, and a profound, bone-deep shock rolls through me. I stare at my own hand, at the foreign, yet impossibly right, object now circling my finger. I look up at him, my eyes wide with 1,000 unasked questions. His face is closer now. The teasing light is gone from his eyes, replaced by an intensity that steals my breath. "Maybe," he says, his voice a low, rough whisper that unravels me completely. "Maybe it was never mine to get back. Maybe it was always meant to be yours." And then he closes the small distance between us. His lips meet mine. It's not a rushed or hungry kiss. It is slow. It is sure. It is a question and an answer all at once. His mouth is soft and warm, and it tastes faintly of tea and something else, something that is just him. One of his hands comes up to cup the back of my neck, his fingers tangling in my hair, holding me steady as my world tilts on its axis. The other hand is still holding mine, our fingers laced together, the new ring a solid presence between our palms. This is real. The thought breaks through the fog in my brain. This is not a dream. This is not a memory. His lips are moving against mine. His thumb is stroking the sensitive skin behind my ear, and I can feel the steady beat of his heart, or maybe it's my own. I kiss him back, a decade of pent-up longing, of silent observation, of hopeless pining, pouring out of me. It's a kiss that says everything I could never say, a confession more honest than any words. It feels like coming home. It feels like I can finally breathe. When he finally pulls back, it's only by an inch. Our foreheads rest together, our breath mingling in the small space between us. His eyes are closed. The candlelight flickers across his face, and I see the tremor in his jaw, the slight parting of his lips. He is not as unshakable as I always thought. "Jules," he breathes, his voice thick with emotion. "Leo," I whisper back. "There's nothing else to say. We just stay there for a long moment, anchored in the storm, the world outside raging while the universe inside this small cabin has finally, blessedly, gone still. I woke to the unfamiliar sound of silence. The rain had stopped. The wind was gone. A pale, gray light filtered through the large windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. For a moment, I was disoriented, my mind struggling to place the rough texture of the sofa beneath my cheek, the heavy weight of the wool blanket draped over me. Then it all came rushing back. The drive, the storm, the candlelight, the kiss. Leo. A jolt of pure, undiluted panic seized me. I sat bolt upright, my heart hammering. I was alone. The cabin was empty. The candles had been extinguished, and the hearth was cold and dark. A crushing wave of morning after unease washed over me. He was gone. He'd woken up, seen me asleep on his couch, and been consumed by regret. The kiss, the ring, it was a mistake. A trick of the candlelight and the storm. A moment of shared loneliness that meant nothing in the cold light of day. My overthinking mind, my oldest and most treacherous companion, kicked into high gear, supplying a dozen scenarios, each more humiliating than the last. I looked down at my hand. The ring was still there. It gleamed dully in the morning gloom, a solid, undeniable piece of evidence. But instead of reassuring me, it felt like a brand. Proof of my foolishness, of how easily I had let my guard down. I had to get out of here. I swung my legs off the couch, my movements clumsy with haste. I'd just leave. I'd drive back down the mountain and pretend none of this had ever happened. I could mail the ring back to him, anonymously. Just as I stood up, the cabin door creaked open. Leo stepped inside, his arms full of firewood. He wore a thick flannel shirt over his gray t-shirt from yesterday, and his hair was damp from the morning mist. He stopped when he saw me standing there, wide-eyed and frantic. He took in my posture, the blanket pulled at my feet, the wild look in my eyes. He knew. He could see the panic plain as day. He didn't say anything at first. He walked past me to the hearth and set the wood down with a quiet thud. The silence was deafening. My stomach twisted into a tight, painful knot. This was it. The awkward apology. The last night was a mistake speech. I braced myself for the impact. But it never came. After arranging the kindling, he straightened up and turned to face me. His expression was calm, his eyes soft. He walked toward me slowly, and I had to fight the urge to take a step back. He stopped right in front of me, so close I could feel the warmth radiating from his body, could smell the crisp, cold air clinging to his shirt. He didn't speak. Instead, he reached out and gently took my left hand. My hand, the one wearing his ring. He lifted it between us, his thumb stroking over my knuckles. He looked down at our joined hands, at the silver band on my finger, and then his eyes lifted to meet mine. "Morning," he said. Just that one word. But it was filled with so much. There was no regret in his voice, no awkwardness. Just a low, quiet warmth that seeped into my skin and began to soothe the frantic terror in my chest. It was the simplest, most profound reassurance he could have possibly given me. He wasn't running. He wasn't pushing me away. He was here. "Morning," I managed to reply, my voice barely a whisper. He held my gaze for a long moment. Then a small smile touched his lips. Coffee. My internal fear, the lingering doubt that had been my shadow for so long, wasn't completely gone. It was a test. My test. I had to ask. I had to know if this was real, if it could survive the sunrise. "Leo," I said, my voice gaining a little strength. "What does this mean?" I gestured with my chin toward our hands, toward the ring. He didn't hesitate. His grip on my hand tightened, a firm, grounding pressure. He looked directly into my eyes, and the last of his playful facade was gone, replaced by a raw, beautiful honesty. "It means I spent the last 10 years kicking myself for being an idiot," he said, his voice low and serious. "It means I left that ring on the counter on purpose, hoping you'd find it, hoping you'd have a reason to call me. It means when you never did, I figured I'd read everything wrong, and I spent years trying to forget how much I wanted you." Every word was a blow, dismantling the entire narrative I had built my loneliness upon. He had felt it too. The pining hadn't been one-sided. It was mutual, all this time. He took a breath, his thumb tracing the circle of the ring on my finger. "It means I don't want you to give it back. Ever. It means I want you to stay. For breakfast. For the weekend. For as long as you want." He paused, his gaze searching mine. That's what it means, Jules. What does it mean to you? The conscious choice. It was mine to make. I could retreat into the familiar safety of my solitude, or I could step into this terrifying, wonderful new reality. I looked at our hands, at the ring that had been a symbol of my isolation for so long. Now, on my finger, held in his hand, it was a promise, a connection. It means I think I'm home, I said, and the truth of the words settled deep in my bones. A slow, brilliant smile spread across Leo's face, reaching his eyes and making them shine. He brought my hand to his lips and pressed a soft kiss to the ring. Good, he murmured against my skin. The coffee's going to suck, but the company's improving. We made breakfast together in the small kitchen. There was no awkwardness now, only a quiet, humming intimacy. Our bodies brushed against each other as we moved around the space, reaching for mugs, opening the fridge. But now the contact wasn't a source of anxiety and frantic analysis. It was easy, natural, comforting. He showed me where the coffee was, and I found the frying pan. We worked in a comfortable silence. The only sounds the sizzle of eggs in the pan and the soft clink of ceramic mugs. We ate at the massive oak table he had built, the one that had seemed so empty last night. Now it felt just right. The sun had finally broken through the clouds, and golden light streamed through the windows, illuminating the ring on my finger as I lifted my coffee mug. It felt impossibly light. For a decade, its weight in my pocket had been a burden, a constant reminder of what I couldn't have. Now, on my hand, it was buoyant, a symbol not of an ending, but of a beginning I never thought possible. I looked across the table at Leo. He was watching me, a soft, contented look on his face. He wasn't the ghost from my past anymore, or an idealized memory. He was real, solid, sitting 3 feet away from me, sawdust in the cuffs of his shirt and a future in his eyes. I was no longer an observer, watching my life from a distance. I was here. I was a participant. The pane of glass had shattered, and the world was finally, beautifully, in focus.